Thanks, Susan. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Executive Cabinet Member for Adults and Community Housing meeting. It is the 9th of June 2025. We've got an agenda with a few items on it today, but I don't think they're particularly chunky ones, so I wouldn't expect to be keeping you for very long. I know that we don't note apologies, but Susan, just out of courtesy, I guess, is there anybody that said they're not coming?
Nobody said they're not coming, but I've noticed Councillor Price isn't here, but he may bob in, once we've started. So that's the only absence I can see.
Fine. Okay, thank you. So moving on, there's the monitoring report that's been sent around just for information, really. I've looked through this and asked the things that I want to ask in other places. Does anybody on the call want to ask any questions of officers while we're here? No. Okay, so that's noted, Susan, if that's the action that you need us to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And then two financial reports. The first one on the Department of Adults. So who have we got?
I think it's Lynn. I think
Lynn.
it's Lynn
Hi,
Hargreaves. Yeah.
Good afternoon. So this is the adults report for the final outturn position. So the revenue outturn position was in line with the budget following a transfer from reserves of 49k. The reserves in year, there was a movement of 190k, which was a decrease in year. In section 2, table 2.1 just gives the budget changes from the start of the financial year to the end of the year. And then table 2.3 gives the breakdown of the expenditure in year, showing the 49 overspent and the movement from reserves. There's details of the capital programme and then a breakdown of the reserves position. So for this report, the recommendations are just that you note the revenue budget changes in year, note the projected final outturn position at the 31st of March, and note the capital expenditure in year. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lynn. Before I say something, I'll open it up. Does anybody wish to speak on the item? No. Well, only to say, thanks, Lynn, for taking us through that, but only to say that even though there's a transfer of reserves to balance the budget, in the scheme of things, £49,000 is such a tiny amount. So to come in so close to budget in an area where there's such a huge demand on council services shows how hard everybody's working and how the transformation work that's been underway for a number of years is really starting to pay dividends. And I know from meetings in other places and with people from other places that there are lots out there that are quite surprised that we're able to do such a good job and come in on budget at other authorities. So if there's an opportunity to feed that back to staff, I'll certainly do it myself. But if it can go back from me to Rachel and Christian, then that'd be really, really great from my point of view. But given we're only to note this report, I'm happy to note it, and that can be recorded in the minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks, Lynn. You've got another one now on housing?
Yeah, so a similar report for the housing report. So at the end of the financial year, there was a movement from reserves of 425k for housing and a movement to reserved of 57 for community safety. A similar report that in section 2.1, it's got the budget changes from the start of the year to the end of the year. Then 2.3 is the breakdown of the revenue expenditure, showing the reserve movement of 368 in total. And then we've just got the reserve table in table 3. So again, this is just for noting. So it's the noting the revenue budget changes in year, note the financial position for housing and community safety.
Well, you tailed off at the end there, Lynn, but I think you were inviting questions if there were any anyway, so I'm not sure we missed anything substantial. So thank you again. Obviously, a slightly different picture with the amount from reserves that's been transferred in to balance the budget, but I was up at the temporary accommodation place remind me what that's called, on the other side of the bypass.
Benjamin Court.
That's the one. Thank you very much. Up on Friday, so I've seen the kind of pressure that they're under, and I appreciate why that's in the position that it's in with the demand that there is to house people in temporary accommodation and hotels. So understandable, but a significantly better position than not so long ago. So things are getting better. And I know that the staff up there are working incredibly hard, and it was good to go and speak to them at the engagement session the other week too. So I've got no questions on that. And if there's nothing from anybody else, then again, Lynn, thank you very much for presenting that, and I'll note that, and it can be recorded.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very good. All right, so final paper in the public part of the meeting is on the Safeguarding Adults Board staffing arrangements. The paper's been circulated. Who is this for? Rachel, Christian? Oh, Mark, sorry.
It's Mark, yeah.
So myself, thank you,
Sorry.
Chair. As people will see within the paper, community safety services and community housing services sit as an integral part of the Adults and Communities Department here in the council, and within that function we've got an amalgamated support for a number of statutory boards to aid efficiency and resilience across the team. So the Community Safety Partnership, the Domestic Abuse Board, and the Adult Safeguarding Board being three significant boards within that arrangement. Within the team there is a fixed term role that supports the Adult Safeguarding Board. This report essentially seeks permission to transition that role from a fixed term contract, which is due to expire in September, to a permanent role. The project officer post costs just over £43,000 annually and is funded by the Safeguarding Service. The role does support statutory functions as noted under section 43 of the Care Act, and the recommendation to the executive member is to approve option 3.1 and establish the post as a permanent role. Welcome any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Well, from my point of view, we've got a Safeguarding Adults Board and it needs to be supported with staffing. So having it on fixed term contracts that we just keep renewing doesn't make any sense to me if we need this job. So let's make it permanent. I can't see anybody else indicating. So I'm happy to accept the recommendation to make that post permanent as set out in the report.
Perfect, thank you very much.
All captured. Okay, so that concludes the items of the public meeting. So Susan, you were just going to say you were going to turn off the recording now?
Sorry, yeah, I preempted what you was going to say. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm going to stop recording now while we're going to the confidential part. Just bear with me.